In the previous lecture, we started studying about the plant tissues, and about the plant tissue we studied mainly about the meristematic tissue and its types. Now we will study about the another type of plant tissue, which is called the permanent tissue. So before we proceed, let us summarize what we studied in the previous video. So we were studying about the plant tissues, and we studied that plant tissues are mainly of two types: meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Based on the ability of the cells to divide, they are of two types: meristematic and permanent. Meristematic tissues are those in which the cells go on dividing actively, and permanent tissues are those in which the cells lose the ability to divide and they get specialized to perform a specific function. Now, in the meristematic tissue, we studied about primary meristem and secondary meristem, the two types of meristems, right, along with their examples. Now in this lecture we will study about the permanent tissue. So in the permanent tissue we will cover two types of permanent tissue: simple permanent and complex permanent. In the simple permanent, we will study about three types of cells: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. The complex tissue we will cover in the next lecture. Alright, so in this lecture we are going to study about the permanent tissue and its types, simple and complex. We will only learn about the simple permanent tissue in this session. So let us begin. So what is a permanent tissue? A permanent tissue, as the name suggests, it is permanent. It is not dividing, and it has stopped dividing. It has lost the ability to divide, and it has now become differentiated and mature to perform a specific function. If we talk about the permanent tissue, then it is basically of two types: simple and complex. So in the simple permanent tissue, the tissue is made up of only one type of cell. So these one type of cells, they have similar structure and perform similar function. They constitute the simple permanent tissue. And the complex permanent tissue is composed of many different types of cells. Many different types of cells to perform a specific function. Examples of complex tissues are xylem and phloem. This we will study in the next lecture. Alright, so let us begin with the simple permanent tissue. So simple permanent tissue, as I just told, that it is made up of only one type of cells which perform similar function and have similar structure. The first type in the simple permanent tissue is the parenchyma. What is parenchyma? So parenchyma is that type of tissue. It forms the major part of plant organ. Parenchyma cells or parenchymatous tissue forms the major part of plant organs. Alright, the cells are isodiametrical and their shape could be oval, round, spherical, polygonal, or even elongated. So isodiametrical means what? That the diameter of the cells will be similar, like this. So the parenchymatous cells are isodiametrical, that means their diameter or the radius will be equal. Then they could be spherical, they could be oval, they could be polygonal, and they can also be elongated like this. Alright, they form the major part of the plant organ. Now, the cells of the parenchyma could be closely packed or they can have intercellular spaces. Most of the times they do have intercellular spaces. So, the layers arranged look like this. Alright, so these are parenchyma cells. And these are the intercellular spaces. Now the walls of these parenchyma, they are thin because these are living cells and they are actively involved in the growth and development of the plant. So the cells are living and their walls are thin and is made up of cellulose. The walls of parenchyma are thin and made up of cellulose. Alright, and these cells have chloroplast, so chlorophyll is present. And they are involved in the function of photosynthesis, storage, and secretion. Because they are living cells, they will help in the storage of food and secretion of different type of plant materials or plant products. Alright, so this was about the first type of simple permanent tissue, which is called the parenchyma, and these are some of the important points about it. Now let us move on to the next type of the cell, which is the collenchyma. The collenchyma cells are found just below the epidermis in dicots. So when we will study about the structure of dicot stem, there we will study that a layer of collenchyma, usually called hypodermis, is present below the epidermis. Alright, so the collenchyma forms hypodermis in dicots, and they can be present as a single layer or in patches. The shape could be oval, spherical, or polygonal. Intercellular spaces are absent in these cells. In parenchyma, we studied that intercellular spaces may or may not be present. Mostly they are present. But in collenchyma, intercellular spaces will be absent. So these cells are closely packed. Also, the walls of collenchyma are thick. Cell walls are very thick, and their corners are quite thickened. Corners are thickened due to deposition of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectin. Alright, so if we look at the structure of a collenchyma, usually the cells are like this. So this is the cell wall. Cell wall is made of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. And these cells will have depositions at the corners like this, which provides strength to these cells. The corners are highly thickened. And why are they highly thickened? Because of the deposition of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So what happens because of these thickened cell walls? They provide support to the plant. Provide mechanical support to the plant. Mainly the young stem and petiole of leaf. So all the young parts of the plant which require support during their growth, they all have these collenchyma cells. And as we can see in the figure, there are no intercellular spaces between these cells. Right? They are closely packed, hence they are responsible for providing mechanical support. Also, the corners of the cell walls are highly thickened because of the cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin deposition. So this was about the collenchyma. Now sometimes chloroplasts are also found in collenchyma, and they are also involved in the assimilation of food. So this was about the collenchyma. Now let us move on to the next type, which is sclerenchyma. So sclerenchyma are the dead cells. The cells of the sclerenchyma are dead. No part of it is living. Alright, it is made up of long, narrow and pointed cells. Protoplasm is absent in them because they are dead cells. Absent. They may have a few or numerous pits. What are pits? We will understand with the help of a diagram. Then they are mainly responsible for the mechanical support. Because they are dead cells, they cannot perform any other function except the mechanical support, right? And yeah, so let us understand with the help of diagram. So if we talk about sclerenchyma, then sclerenchyma cells are of two types, fibres and sclereids. Based on their shape of the cells in sclerenchyma, they are of two types. They can be either fibers or sclereids. So if we talk about fibers, then fibers are long and narrow pointed cells like this with tapering ends. Their walls are very thick So this long pointed narrow cells are fibers, sclerenchyma fibers. Protoplasm is absent. The walls are very thick. And this central portion, this cavity is called lumen. These are the thick walls. Now these thick walls are made up of there's a deposition of lignin in the cell wall, and because of this lignin deposition the walls are extra thick. Alright, so the thickness of the wall is because of the lignin deposition. So this was about the fiber, the structure of the fiber. Fibers are long, narrow and pointed cells with thickened walls, and fibers usually occur in groups and is found in various parts of the plant. Now if we talk about the sclereids, then the shape of sclereid is oval, round or cylindrical. Shape of the sclereid can be oval, round or spherical, and just like the fiber, the walls are thickened here. It is actually a bit more thickened as compared to fibers, and this thickness is because of the same reason, that is deposition of lignin. So cell wall is lignified. Now the lumen will be very small in sclereids. So you can see in the fiber the lumen was a bit large, but here the lumen is very small. Now there will be pits. So we studied in one of the points that the sclerenchyma cells have a few or numerous pits. So what are pits? So pits are these structures. They are kind of a cavity which forms pores on the cells. They are called pits. A type of cavity, right? So pits will be present on both fibers and sclereids. So like this. These are called pits here. Alright. So if we talk about the sclereids, then we will find sclereids in the fruit wall of nuts, in the pulp of fruits like guava, pear and sapota. So if you have ever eaten these fruits, guava, pear and sapota, then you must know that there's some part of the fruit in the pulp which is a bit hard to chew, right? There are some parts which are hard to chew, and that's because of the presence of sclereids. And sclereid is a type of sclerenchymatous cell. So we just studied that they are highly thickened cell wall and they provide mechanical strength. That's why whenever they are present, they will provide mechanical support and they will be hard to touch or to when we eat them, like in the pulp of guava and pear and sapota. Also the fruit wall of nuts. So we know the nuts, if you have ever eaten a nut, then the walls are very thick and hard. So that is because of the lignin deposition, right? And the walls have these cells called sclereids. Besides this, they are also found in the seed coat of legumes So leguminous seeds, for example pea and gram, not in pea but in gram, you will find that the seed coat is very tough. That is because of the sclereid, and they are also found in the leaves of tea. Alright, so this was about the sclerenchyma cells, which are mainly dead cells. They are of two types based on their shape, fibres and sclereids, which we understood with the help of a diagram, and also their functions and where they are found. So sclerenchyma are mainly responsible for the mechanical support in plants, and their cell walls are deposited by lignin. Lignin deposition is present in the cell walls. Protoplasm is absent. So this completes the type of simple permanent tissue. So we started with plant tissue and its type. We covered meristematic tissues, primary and secondary meristem in the previous lecture, and in this lecture we started with the permanent tissue and its type. So permanent tissue is of two types, simple and complex. In this lecture we covered about the simple permanent tissues, that are parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. We understood with the help of diagram that what are the differences between these three types of tissues, and along with the examples and their functions in the plant. So I hope this is clear. That's all for this lecture. Thank you so much.